Have you ever felt a sudden, chilling shift in a relationship? One day, you're sharing laughs, making plans, and the connection feels vibrant and alive. The next, in unnerving silence, your messages are left on read, your calls go unanswered, and you're left staring at a digital void. A ghost where a friend used to be. It's a silence that is deafening, isn't it? It leaves you replaying every recent conversation, scrutinizing every action, asking yourself that one painful question: what did I do wrong? But what if I told you that this sudden withdrawal, this inexplicable distance, is rarely a coincidence? It's a deliberate choice. They won't sit you down and explain their reasons. They won't offer you the courtesy of a confrontation. Instead, they simply vanish. They pull away, leaving you to grapple with the confusion and the self-doubt. I'm talking about a distance that feels intensely personal, yet often, it has very little to do with you at all. Some people disappear the moment they no longer need something from you. Others pull away precisely because your personal growth, your success, and your light make them feel uncomfortable in their own skin. And some, quite simply, were never genuinely invested in the first place. Here's the liberating truth. You don't need to chase them. You don't need to beg for answers or demand an explanation that will likely never come. The real power is found not in seeking their validation, but in understanding the deep-seated reasons behind their silence and, most importantly, refusing to let it diminish your own worth. So, why do people suddenly cut you off? And what does their silence really say about them? Stick with me, because the final reason we'll explore might just change the way you see these situations forever. Before we dive in, let me share a story that perfectly captures the heart of this wisdom, the story of a man named Ethan. Ethan was a beacon of warmth in his social circle. He was that reliable friend, always the first to offer help, to listen, to celebrate others' wins. His presence was a comfort, but then, almost overnight, something changed. His messages, once met with instant replies, now lingered for days without a response. Friends who once actively sought his company now seemed to drift away in conversations that used to be filled with easy laughter became cold, forced, and painfully brief. At first, he brushed it off. They're just busy, he'd tell himself. But deep down, a question began to haunt his every waking moment. Why are they ignoring me? Frustrated and heartbroken, Ethan visited his old mentor, Mr. Harris, a retired psychologist known for his profound wisdom. "Sir," Ethan began, his voice heavy with confusion, "don't understand. The very people who once valued my friendship now act as if I don't even exist. What did I do wrong?" Mr. Harris simply smiled a knowing smile. He handed Ethan a single, unlit candle and a matchstick. "Light this," he said softly. Ethan struck the match, and a small, hopeful flame flickered to life, dancing in the dim room. "Now," Mr. Harris instructed, "bring the candle close to that open window." Ethan did as he was told. The moment the flame neared the window, a sudden gust of wind swept through, extinguishing it in an instant, leaving behind only a wisp of smoke. Harris leaned back in his chair. "That, my boy," he said gently. "And why people ignore you?" Then stared, completely puzzled. I don't understand." Mr. Harris chuckled softly. "A small, timid flame is easily protected and kept alive. But when a flame begins to burn brightly, with passion and purpose, it inevitably attracts the wind. People don't always ignore you because they dislike you, Ethan. Sometimes they ignore you because your growth makes them uncomfortable. You were once predictable, familiar, perhaps even on their level. But when you started to evolve, to improve, to outgrow your old self, your light began to illuminate the areas where they have chosen to remain stagnant. Instead of being inspired to grow with you, they chose to distance themselves. A wave of realization washed over Ethan. He wasn't being rejected. He was simply rising. That night, he made a powerful decision. He would stop chasing explanations. He would stop shrinking himself to fit into spaces he had outgrown. He would stop feeling guilty for outgrowing people who were committed to staying the same. And in that moment of acceptance, he found peace. He realized that a candle burning brightly will always make the wind restless. The solution isn't to dim your light, but to find a space where you're allowed to shine. Now, before we explore our first powerful lesson from this, if you're finding this content helpful and it's resonating with you, I gently encourage you to subscribe and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss out on more insights to help you on your journey. Okay, let's begin. Number 1. They're testing your reaction. It's talk about a subtle, yet powerful, psychological game some people play. They ignore you simply to see how you'll react. Think about it. One moment, they are completely engaged, responsive, and everything feels perfectly normal. The next, you're met with the wall of silence. No replies, no calls, just a cold, distant energy. But here's the critical thing to understand. This isn't always about them losing interest. Sometimes, it's a calculated test of power. Ignoring you is their way of asking, how much do you need me? They want to see if you'll chase them, if you'll shower them with attention, how much effort you'll put in to win them back. Most importantly, they're testing how much control they have over your emotions. The moment you start double texting, over-explaining yourself, or pleading, is everything okay? They've won. You've just shown them that their silence has power over you. And once they know that, they hold all the leverage. Imagine a game of tug-of-war. As long as both sides are pulling, the game is on. But the instant they drop the rope by ignoring you, they're waiting. They expect you to panic and start pulling frantically on your own, dragging the rope over to their side. But what happens? If you simply drop the rope too, the game ends. That is the incredible power of non-reaction. When someone ignores you to test your response, and you give them nothing but calm and continued focus on your own life, they lose all their control. This is where ancient Stoic wisdom shines. He who needs least from others is the most powerful. True strength isn't found in proving how much you care. It's found in being so secure in your own worth that you don't require their validation. I remember a while back, I noticed this exact pattern with someone I considered a close friend. Whenever I became deeply focused on my own goals or got busy with a project, they would suddenly turn cold. At first, I was worried, but then I decided to try an experiment. I didn't chase. No, hey, is something wrong? Texts, no calls, just silence. And you know what happened? A few days later, they came back warm, friendly, and engaging, as if nothing had ever happened. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about their feelings being hurt. It was a subconscious test to see if I would beg for their attention. And because I didn't play, they lost their upper hand. So, how do you handle this? First, recognize the pattern. If this happens repeatedly, it's not a coincidence. It's a tactic. Second, refuse to play the game. If they ignore you to get a rise out of you, give them only peace. Your energy is too precious to be spent on manipulative tests. And finally, remember your value. The right people, the ones who genuinely deserve a place in your life, will never need to play games to know you care. They will feel it in your presence, not tested in your absence. Ultimately, attention and respect should be mutual, never something you have to prove you're worthy of. If someone is playing games, let them play alone. But this kind of manipulative testing is just one piece of the puzzle. What happens when their silence isn't a game at all? What if it stems from a place so deep within them that it has absolutely nothing to do with you? The next reason we'll explore is often the hardest to accept, but it's the one that can truly set you free. Number 2. they no longer benefit from you. Let's talk about one of the most disheartening realizations you can have. Discovering that a connection wasn't a friendship, but a transaction. One day, they are warm, engaging, and deeply involved in your life. The next, a profound silence. You're left racking your brain, wondering what you did to cause the sudden void. But here is the difficult, liberating truth. Some people were never truly there for you. They were there for what you could provide. Perhaps it was your unwavering, emotional support, your valuable connections, your generosity, or even just the simple validation you gave them. You were a resource, and the moment they felt they had gotten all they could, or the moment you could no longer serve their purpose, they disappeared. Think of yourself as a power outlet, a steady source of energy. People who operate this way are like devices plugging into you. As long as they are charging, getting the advice, the help, the validation they need, they remain firmly connected. But the second they are fully charged, or worse, find a more convenient outlet, they unplug without a word of warning. They don't think to thank the source of the power, they just move on to the next one. That's why these disappearances feel so abrupt and confusing. They never valued you as a person. They only valued the energy they could draw from you. This is where we can lean on the timeless wisdom of the Stoics. The philosopher Epictetus once said, "Attach yourself to what is true, not to those who are temporary." This isn't just a clever quote. It's a guide for a peaceful life. Stop anchoring your sense of self-worth to people who are only passing through on their journey to get something. The right people, your people, won't vanish when they no longer need a favor. They stay because they value you, not just what you can do for them. I remember a time when someone appeared in my life who seemed so genuinely interested and friendly. They were always the one reaching out, always praising me, but looking back, and see the pattern with perfect clarity. Every single interaction was initiated by a need. They needed advice, a favor, or simply an ear to vent to for hours. And I gave, but because I believe that's what it means to be there for someone. Then, one day, I gently pulled back. I didn't become rude or unavailable. I just stopped being the constant provider. I waited to see if they would reach out, just to see how I was doing. Can you guess what happened? Crickets. Complete silence. They vanished from my life as quickly as they had entered it. That's when I finally understood. I wasn't their friend. I was their convenience. And the moment the convenience store closed, they had no reason to stick around. So, how do you handle this? First, recognize the signs. If someone's presence in your life is consistently tied to their needs, pay close attention. That's a red flag. Second, release the need to chase. If they disappear the moment you stop providing, let them go. Consider their departure a gift of clarity. And finally, invest your precious energy in real connections. True relationships aren't built on transactions. They are built on the solid ground of mutual respect, care, and genuine affection. When someone leaves because you are no longer beneficial to them, don't take it as a personal failure. Take it as a powerful lesson. The ones who stay are showing you who truly belongs in your life. By the way, if these insights are bringing you some clarity, take just a moment to hit that like button. It helps this message reach others who might need to hear it too. Number 3, they're influenced by others now. We explore a reason for silence that is incredibly frustrating, yet deeply revealing. It's when someone starts treating you differently, not because of anything you've done, but because of what someone else has whispered in their ear. One day, the rapport is easy and warm. The next, they're cold, distant, and you can feel them looking at you through a new lens of suspicion. You're left completely baffled, wondering, what on earth changed? Here is the truth. A person with a weak sense of self can be turned against you by mere gossip. Some people don't form their own opinions through experience and discernment. they rent them from others. Instead of coming to you for clarity or trusting the history you share, they listen to whispers, rumors, and the judgments of the crowd. Once those toxic seeds of doubt are planted, they begin to see you not as you are, but through the distorted filter of someone else's narrative. Think of a mighty, rooted tree versus a single, detached leaf. A strong tree stands firm, its roots deep in its own truth, no matter how high the wind of opinion blows. But a weak leaf, it gets carried away by the slightest breeze. Tumbling in any direction the wind pushes it. People who are easily influenced are like that leaf. They lack a solid foundation of their own principles and integrity, so they sway with whatever social current is strongest. If someone can be convinced to turn against you without ever questioning the source or seeking your side of the story, they were never a reliable friend to begin with. A powerful Stoic idea reminds us that a mind easily swayed by others was never truly grounded in its loyalty to you. People with real integrity, with true character, seek truth. They don't just passively accept rumors. If someone can be turned against you that easily, consider it a lesson, not a loss. I recall a time a good friend of mine suddenly became distant. There was no argument, no conflict, just an undeniable shift in energy. At first, I was confused, but then I heard from a mutual acquaintance that this friend had been told a complete fabrication about me. Instead of having the courage or respect to ask me about it, they simply chose to believe the lie. In that moment, I had two choices. I could chase them down, desperately plead my case, and try to correct the rumor, or I could remain still and let their actions reveal their true character. I chose the latter. I didn't beg them to see the truth. Months later, they reached out, full of apologies. They had finally realized that the person who fed them lies about me had a pattern of doing it to others. By then, however, I had already moved on. The truth is, anyone who can be so easily manipulated into turning against you was never truly on your side. How do you handle this? First, do not defend yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Your peace is more valuable than their opinion. If they didn't value you enough to seek the truth, they don't deserve an explanation. Second, let people's actions reveal their loyalty. A true friend acts as a shield against gossip. They don't become a conduit for it. Finally, be thankful for the revelation. When someone shows you they are weak enough to be swayed, they have given you the gift of knowing they are not a solid foundation in your life. In the end, you don't lose real people. You only lose the illusions you had of them. Let the weak-minded drift away and fill that space with those who have the strength to think for themselves. Number 4, they feel intimidated by your growth. This is a truth most people don't expect. The moment you commit to your own evolution, to growing, healing, and succeeding, some people will instinctively pull away. It's not because you've done anything wrong to them. It's because your progress unintentionally highlights their own stagnation. They were comfortable with you as long as you stayed on their level, a familiar reflection of themselves. But as you begin to rise, you become a living, breathing reminder of the potential they aren't willing to work for. And so, instead of finding inspiration in your ascent, they feel a sense of discomfort and choose to distance themselves. The hard truth is this: some people would rather lose you than be forced to confront their own insecurities. They don't hate your success. They hate how it makes them feel about their own lack of progress. Imagine you and a friend are climbing a majestic mountain. At the start, you're side by side, sharing the struggle. The journey feels like a partnership, but as your determination kicks in and you start climbing higher with more focus, they begin to lag behind. They start complaining about how steep the path is, suggesting you turn back. Then, their complaints curdle into resentment. Finally, they stop completely. They might say something like, "You're changing," or "You're not the same person anymore." But listen closely to what they're really saying. I can't keep up with you, and your journey forward makes me feel left behind. And instead of trying to climb with you, I'd rather stay here and resent you for leaving. This is where we must embrace a powerful piece of Stoic wisdom. Do not shrink yourself to make others comfortable. Grow, and let them decide if they are willing to rise with you. Your growth is not an attack on anyone. It is an invitation. It is a test of who is truly willing to celebrate your rise. I once had a close friend. Let's call him David. For years, we were on the same wavelength, same mindset, same habits. But then began a journey of intense self-improvement. I started reading voraciously, setting bigger goals, and fundamentally changing how I saw my own potential. At first, David was my biggest cheerleader. "That's amazing, man," he'd say. But as I continued to progress, his energy shifted. The encouragement was replaced by playful jabs with the sharp, cutting edge. "So, you too good for us now, huh?" Eventually, those digs turned into excuses to avoid me. He wasn't celebrating my growth anymore. He was subtly trying to minimize it. The day I realized our paths had diverged was when he told me, "You've just changed, man. It's like you're trying too hard." In that moment of sad clarity, I understood I hadn't changed too much. He had chosen to stay the same. He wasn't inspired. He was intimidated. And rather than growing, he chose to step away. So, how do you navigate this? First, never ever shrink yourself. If someone cannot handle your light, that is their battle to fight, not a reason for you to dim your flame. Second, pay attention to the energy. When you share good news, does their energy lift with yours? Or does it curdle into subtle jealousy? The energy never lies. And finally, let them go with peace. Not everyone who starts the journey with you is meant to finish it. Release them without anger, understanding that your paths have simply diverged. And what happens when that personal growth leads you to build healthier, stronger boundaries for yourself? That brings us to our final, empowering reason, number 5. You stopped playing by their rules. This is what happens when you finally stop tolerating manipulation. People who once relied on controlling you will begin to pull away, and it can feel incredibly confusing. Someone you thought was close suddenly acts cold, stops including you, and creates an unsettling distance. But if you take a step back, you'll realize their behavior didn't change in a vacuum. It changed because yours did first. Here's the truth. Some people only stay connected to you as long as they can dictate the terms of the relationship. They thrive on their ability to influence how you think, act, and feel. The moment you stop tolerating their guilt trips, their subtle put-downs, or their constant need for control, they begin to fade away. Not because you did something wrong, but because they never valued you as an equal. They only valued you as someone they could manage. Think of it like a puppet whose strings have been cut. For so long, the puppeteer pulls the strings, deciding every movement, every reaction. But what happens the moment you, the puppet, decide to cut those strings? You no longer dance to their tune. You stand on your own. A healthy person would celebrate your newfound freedom, but the manipulator, they don't try to reconnect with the puppet. They simply drop it and walk away. Without control, they lose all interest. This is where you must understand a profound truth. The price of your independence is the loss of those who required your dependence. People who genuinely respect you will celebrate your boundaries. Those who only valued their control over you will disappear. See their departure as a blessing, not a loss. I remember someone in my life who would constantly guilt-trip me if I disagreed with them, or say I was being fair if I set a boundary. For a long time I walked on eggshells, playing along just to keep the peace. But the constant anxiety was exhausting. One day, I just stopped. I didn't argue. I didn't justify my decision. I simply stood my ground. The response? Absolute silence. They just vanished. At first, it stung. It felt like a rejection. But then, a wave of relief washed over me. It wasn't a loss. It was freedom. How do you handle this? First, recognize the gain. If someone's affection is conditional upon your compliance, it is not a real connection. Second, stop justifying your boundaries. You do not need to write a thesis explaining why you deserve respect. The moment you stop explaining and start embodying your worth, they lose their power. And finally, let them walk away. Their absence is not a punishment. It is a sign that you are finally moving in the right direction towards self-respect and authentic connections. Not everyone will celebrate your independence, but the ones who leave were only there for the control art for you. So, as we've seen, the silence of others rarely has the final say about your worth. Whether it's a test, a transaction, a weakness, an insecurity, or a loss of control, the reasons people pull away are almost always a reflection of their own inner world. The true power was never in chasing them for an explanation. It was, and always will be, in how you respond. It's in dropping the rope, in recognizing your value beyond what you can offer, in standing firm in your truth, in refusing to shrink, and in bravely cutting the strings off manipulation. You are not being rejected. You are being redirected. Let their silence be the space you need to rise, to grow, and to fill your life with people who not only celebrate your light, but who aren't afraid to shine brightly alongside you. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. If any of these reasons particularly resonated with you, I would be honored if you shared which one in the comments below. Your stories and your wisdom are what make this community so incredibly powerful. Your support means the world and allows me to continue creating content like this. Until next time, stand firm, keep growing, and never, ever apologize for your light. Number 6. You've exposed their true nature. Let's discuss what happens when your newfound clarity becomes a spotlight. Some people will disappear from your life, not because you push them away, but because they simply cannot survive in an environment where their deception no longer works. For so long, they may have relied on a carefully crafted persona, on half-truths, hidden motives, and subtle manipulation. But the moment you see through the facade, the moment the mask slips, they run. Here is a fundamental truth. When you expose someone's true character, they are left with only two choices: to change or to leave. And for many, it is far easier to walk away from you than it is to face the person they are in the mirror. It's easier to label you as difficult or change than to confront their own flaws, their own selfishness, their own falsehoods. You didn't lose them. They lost the ability to fool you. Think of it like walking into a dimly lit room that you've known for years. In the soft, forgiving shadows, everything seems fine. But one day, you decide to flip on a bright, overhead light. Suddenly, you see everything with stark clarity: the dust on the furniture, the cracks in the walls, the mess that was always there but hidden by the darkness. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That is precisely what happens when you recognize someone's true nature. The moment the light of your awareness shines, those who thrived in the shadows can't stand the exposure. They will accuse you of changing, but what they really mean is, you stopped letting me get away with things. This is where we find a profound piece of Stoic wisdom. The truth only offends those who are living a lie. A person who is honest, accountable, and genuine has nothing to fear from the truth. But those who build their relationships on a foundation of deception will see your clarity as an attack, because it threatens their entire reality. I remember someone in my life who had perfected the art of playing the victim. Every disagreement, every problem, was always someone else's fault. For the longest time, I fell for it. I defended them and gave them endless benefits of the doubt. But then, the little things started adding up, small contradictions, moments where their story didn't make sense, a flicker of something cold behind the sorrowful mask. So one day, I did something different. Instead of offering blind sympathy, I began asking simple, direct questions. Their reaction was immediate and volcanic. Suddenly, I was the one being too harsh, the one overanalyzing things, the one who wasn't the kind, understanding person they used to know. And then, they vanished. Not with an argument, but with the cold, telling distance. They couldn't operate without my complicity. How do you handle this? First, do not regret seeing the truth. The pain of a revealed truth is always better than the slow poison of a comfortable lie. Second, let them go. If someone's presence in your life was conditional on your ignorance, they were never truly there in the first place. Their departure is a confirmation of your wisdom. And finally, stand firm in your integrity. The right people will be drawn to your honesty. The wrong ones will run from it. In the end, the truth doesn't destroy real relationships, it only destroys the counterfeit ones. Now, after seeing someone's true nature, it's easy to feel hurt or even cynical. But what if we could reframe this entire experience, not as a series of losses, but as a single, powerful gain? This brings us to our final and most liberating realization of all. Number 7. It's a blessing in disguise. Let's talk about the experience of being ignored in a way that feels like a rejection at first, but is actually one of life's greatest gifts. When people suddenly distance themselves, it stings. It sends us into a spiral of self-doubt. But what if their silence isn't a verdict on your worth, but rather a vital part of your journey? Here is the ultimate truth. Being ignored is not a loss. It is a filter. People who can casually dismiss you, who can distance themselves without explanation, are revealing something crucial about their character and their place in your life. They are showing you that they were never meant to stay. Instead of grieving their absence, what if you saw it for what it truly is? A blessing in disguise. Think of your life as a magnificent garden. A healthy tree doesn't mourn the leaves that turn brown and fall away in autumn. It doesn't cling to what is dead. It understands, with a deep, quiet wisdom, that it must let go to create space for new, vibrant growth to emerge in the spring. That is exactly how our relationships work. Some people are seasonal. They are meant to be part of your story, for a chapter, not the whole book. When they ignore you or walk away, they are the leaves falling away. They are making space for the right people, the ones who will nourish your soil and grow with you to finally enter your life. This is where we embrace the Stoic mindset. Do not grieve those who walked away. Be grateful they revealed themselves. If someone can ignore your presence so easily, it means they never truly valued it in the first place. And that is not a loss. It is clarity. Clarity is one of the most precious gifts you can ever receive. I once had a friend who was a constant presence in my life until they weren't. No fight, no fallout, just an abrupt and complete silence. For a moment, I was hurt and confused. Did I do something? I considered reaching out, trying to fix a problem I didn't even understand, but instead, I chose to do nothing. I waited. Days turned into weeks, and I had a stunning realization. I had always been the one putting in all the effort, making all the plans, keeping the connection alive. The moment I stopped, the entire friendship collapsed. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I hadn't lost a real friend. I had simply lost the illusion of one. Their silence was the answer I never knew I needed. How do you handle this? First, shift your entire mindset. Being ignored is not a reflection of your value. It is a revelation of their role in your story. Second, stop chasing people who choose to leave. If their absence comes that easily, their presence was never that real. And finally, pour your energy into those who stay. Real connections don't require constant pursuit. They exist with the natural, effortless reciprocity. At the end of the day, silence is not an enemy to be feared. It is a powerful messenger to be thanked. The people who ignore you have just made room for the people who will truly see you. If these insights have brought you value today, show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing for more content that empowers you on your journey. Now, these 7 reasons are not just theories. They are tools for reclaiming your peace and your power. Let's bring it all together and talk about the single most important mindset you can adopt when you find yourself in the cold, confusing silence of being ignored.